Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Toby's Talk Show. This is episode number 34, and today we are back with another video. And this isn't a regular video from the past few weeks where we've been doing quizzes. Today we are actually back talking about the NBA and some basketball. So I know you guys really enjoyed the quizzes, but I know you guys also really love uh, me talking about basketball. So that's what we're doing today, obviously, because as I'm recording this, I think this is day 4 of NBA being back, which is great. Regular season games, obviously, there were some scrimmages, but those don't really matter. I don't really look too deep into that. And I was granted the opportunity, thanks to technology, to watch some of these games on my laptop, and that's exactly what I did. So I thought it would be cool if we went through and talked about the first 2 days of games, the games specifically that I watched, and kind of analyze them. So the first game we have is the Pelicans and Jazz. And before I start, I do have to say the NBA. It almost felt like that they planned for these games to be so good because in the first 2 days of basketball, these games were all literally overtime games, or at least the games that I watched, 2 point games, 5 point games, very close games, very entertaining to watch. So the first regular season game that happened was the Pelicans versus the Jazz. So the first thing I want to talk about is Zion Williamson. So he is the number one pick, and by the way, I think we all know that he's going to be the best player in this draft class if he stays healthy. He'll be one of the best, literally, of all time if he could stay healthy. Uh, it seemed like he was 100% good to go when the game started. He came back from his leave, and it seemed like he was ready. And then he only played like in 3 minute periods. It was very weird to see. He played 3 minutes, and Alvin Gentry took him out. That's not a good sign if you're a Pelicans fan. You want this guy playing 30 minutes a game, destroying everyone, getting 25 and 14 a game, which he has been doing when he gets those type of minutes. Even in less than, I don't know, I remember exactly how much he averaged, but I don't even think he averaged 30 points, 30 minutes a game, and he was dominating. And then right now in the bubble, it seems like he's back to not being 100% healthy like in the summer league. And he's only playing in 3 minute stretches, and it's kind of scary to see because we know how dominant and how good Zion can be. But this leads to my next point, which is Brandon Ingram. If someone like Zion is in this game, Brandon Ingram will take over. And it just shows how good he is and how good he can get. The defensive side is not as strong as the offensive side, but it has gotten better over the years. And he's pretty damn near unstoppable in offense. I don't want to say unstoppable because, yes, he could obviously be stopped. He's not on that tier yet. But when he has the ball in his hands, you're going to expect him to score in some way or another, either at the free throw line, fading away, a pull-up three, some way, somehow Brandon Ingram is going to score. When Zion's out, it's good for them because, Brandon Ingram could take over. But we've seen that when they're both on the floor, they could both play very, very well. So even though we know if Zion's not in, you could always trust Brandon Ingram to do the work for the Pelicans. Having Zion's only an addition. They're not like negatives where if you put one in, the other one can't do well. I think, especially after more and more games together, which they really haven't gotten, sadly, they could become a really good 1-2 punch. Looking at, I know I haven't even said this, but if you guys know, the Jazz did win this game by 2 after Brandon Ingram missed a 3 to win the game. And I think the real points from the Pelicans side is really that Brandon Ingram is really great. He should win Most Improved Player, as you guys have seen in my video, or at least hopefully you guys watched that video. I talked about why I think he deserves to win it. Lonzo, he needs to score more. He needs to be a little more aggressive on the offensive side. I know he's very good at finding open teammates, and he can do that very well. The other things for the Pelicans, Jrue Holiday, he's great. He could still give you 20 a night. And, that's what I really looked at. Josh Hart's going to be a great player for them off the bench. Jackson Hayes needs to get more aggressive. But this Pelicans team is going to be very scary in a few years. Hopefully Zion's going to be healthy. Brandon Ingram's still on the team. Jrue Holiday hopefully doesn't get traded because I think he could be a very good piece for them. And, from the Jazz side, I think the big X factor for them, especially with Bogdanovich out, is going to be Mike Conley. And Mike Conley had a pretty good game. Some of his shots were a little questionable, but he dropped 20. Donovan Mitchell will give you 25 and 5 every night, which is exactly what he did tonight. Rudy Gobert did his thing. I think the Jazz, their problem is going to be, not having that 20-point per game score and Bogdanovich, it's going to really hurt them, specifically in the playoffs, which is why I don't think they'll make it past round one. I think with Bogdanovich, they really had a chance. Um, but yeah, I think the Jazz, they beat the Pelicans. This isn't good for the Pelicans, especially if they want to make it. And we'll talk about why, specifically because the Blazers won against the Grizzlies. But yeah, my key takeaways is Zion. We got to look at that for his health. It's definitely not okay that he is all of a sudden playing these 3 minute spurts. Brandon Ingram's a stud, and if Mike Conley, the X Factor, plays well, the Jazz will most likely win, especially with Bogdanovich out. But that was a great game. The next game is the Lakers Clippers game. Okay, so I watched the Raptors game yesterday, and the Lakers look like a much different team, but we probably won't talk about that. Maybe I'll get into that. I don't want to make this video too long, especially if I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 games. But the Lakers and Clippers, it was a very interesting game. Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell were both out, and those are both 20-point per game scorers for the Clippers, so that really hurt them. And with Montrezl Harrell out, their size, obviously they have Joakim, but I mean he's terrible. Especially from a Knicks fan, I'm never going to give him credit. But yeah, Montrezl Harrell and Lou Will are really big, and I'm not going to take this win away from the Lakers. As you guys know, I have the Clippers winning it all, so I don't want to sound like, oh, the Clippers were going to win that game. But I think with the Lakers pretty much had a 100% roster, at least what they don't have Avery Bradley, but he's not playing in the playoffs, so this is pretty much their roster. And the Clippers, this is their roster without two 20-point per game scorers, so obviously it's a difference. And if the Lakers had Montrez and Lou Will, it probably would have been a very different game. But for this game, I mean, Anthony Davis, it just shows how dominant he's going to be. And it just shows how good he is as a player. I mean, I think he shot like 17 free throws and made 16 for 17, which is really insane. It just shows how skilled, and he's not even in his prime yet, which is pretty crazy. LeBron, you could see if he wants to take over the game, especially when he did in the fourth, he'll take the game over and destroy. But he also showed how he could just contribute without having the ball in his hands. So that dynamic duo, which we all know and love, and we all know they're going to dominate every night. They did their thing. Kyle Kuzma was especially huge, and I think we all know that he's going to be their X factor in these playoffs. If Kyle Kuzma could be efficient and play better defense like he did last night against the Raptors, he could really help them push them into championship, getting that championship. I think the X factor for the Lakers is definitely Kyle Kuzma, and if he plays like he did against the Clippers and put 16, 17, and 2 and actually played solid defense, that's why they're winning these games. The Lakers bigs had to do a little bit more. It didn't seem like they played a lot. Looking at the stats, JaVale only played 11 minutes. Dwight Howard played 13, which is a little interesting. But it makes sense since the Clippers played a little bit more small ball, especially with Montrez out. But I think the Lakers bigs could still dominate even if the Clippers play small ball. I know it'd be a lot harder to guard the perimeter, but I mean you could always play Anthony Davis at the 5, which they probably do most of the time anyway. But I think Howard and JaVale, they could do a lot of damage if they get 20 minutes, or at least one of them does. So that's interesting to see. And from the Clippers side, Kawhi's a god. Paul George played great. Marcus Morris, these last 2 games against the Lakers, he's been terrible. And even though they didn't have Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell, the fact that Marcus Morris couldn't buy a shot is scary, especially since they traded their first-round pick for him this year. He's got to contribute in some way. However that is, he's just got to help. 0 points in 20 minutes is garbage. And I saw Marcus Morris play 50 games this year as a Knicks fan, and he's a great scorer. He could score, but for some reason against these Lakers he can. He's got to buy his shot, especially with Montrez and Lou out. So big game for the Lakers, even though Montrez and Lou was out. But you still obviously got to remember that their 2 key players were out. The next game, which is probably the most entertaining game for me, was the Blazers and Grizzlies. So what I've learned is that the Blazers are going to be heavily doubted throughout this whole thing, but I have very, very high hopes for them, especially with Yusuf Nurkic back. So Nurkic was looking like almost an all-star center at the end of the year. Obviously, he wasn't an all-star before he hurt his leg, but he was playing at the end of the year like one. He is kind of like a Jokic center, obviously not as good as Jokic, but he could drop 20 and give you those rebounds and give you 5, 6 assists a game. The big takeaway from this is that if Melo can, I'll say this: if Melo can drop 15 to 20 efficiently a game, the Blazers will lock that 8 seed up. Obviously, with Nurkic back, they're gonna be a very good team. Whiteside's gonna be still there. Gary Trent looks amazing. If Gary Trent can continue his hot streak, the Blazers will actually make it real. I wouldn't say really far, but they could put some games up against the Lakers. I really like how their team is formatted now. You have spacing. Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, Collins, Anthony. There's a lot of space there. And off the bench, you have great defenders and Gary Trent, Whiteside, and Hazonia could score for you. Gary Trent could knock down from three, and Whiteside obviously is a beast in the paint. I really like this Blazers team overall. Lillard and McCollum will always do their thing. I think they're X factors. The Blazers and Nurkic too. Don't forget Nurkic. But Melo and Gary Trent are going to be their X factors. If they play as good as they played yesterday, they're gonna make a big run, at least for the 8 seed. Gary Trent is great on defense, and I think he'll be a really good player for the Blazers for a while. On the Grizzlies side, and I don't want to go through stat by stat. I'm going to probably revert back in a minute because I just realized I was doing that. But for the Grizzlies, John Morant was great. He played a lot, and Jaren Jackson was also amazing. Those two guys are going to run the Grizzlies for a while. Looking at it, Brandon Clark's going to be great for them too. I just think, the rest of the guys have got to help contribute. Anthony Tolliver not doing much. DeAnthony Melton not doing much. Kyle Anderson not doing much. These guys have got to step up. These guys are going to be their X factor. I think the Grizzlies' X factor is going to be their bench. But what I saw from the game, the Blazers-Grizzlies game, is, I saw a lot of chucking up threes from both sides. The Blazers were hitting them at the end. The Grizzlies, they got cold at the end of the game. And I think that comes with experience. You got to remember the Grizzlies are such a young team. They're supposed to be the 15th seed this year. So the fact that they're in this position is really great to see for them. But you're going to learn that there's going to be a lot of rough patches for them, and they're going to grow from that. The Blazers were literally in the Western Conference Finals 12 months ago. Probably a little bit longer now, which is insane. But, yeah. So the Blazers know what they're doing. That's why I think the Grizzlies are not going to make it to the AC. I think the Blazers will. But that comes with getting these type of games, these clutch games. We know Jaws is a stud. We know Jaren Jackson's a stud. But the rest of the team has really got to help them out if they're going to win these games. Going back to the Lakers-Clippers game, I saw a lot of poor shots from the Clippers. And I saw the Lakers being a lot more aggressive than the Clippers. If the Clippers want to win, they got to take the best shots they can, but also be aggressive. I know, like I said, they didn't have two of their best players, but, I know that the most efficient shot in basketball is a three-point shot. I completely understand that, but if you're not going to take the shot well, if it's going to be a bad shot from three, don't take it. And from the Pelicans-Jazz game, the Jazz, they kind of found their groove late in the game. They started hitting their shots. The Jazz are a great three-point team, so you can't leave them open. And the Pelicans got cold at the end, and it is what it is. The Pelicans don't have the greatest spacing. Obviously, with Lonzo, it kind of hurts, especially because how bad of a three-point shooter he is. But yeah, those were my takeaways from those three games. The next game is the Bucks-Celtics. The only thing I want to say is, people got to stop, hyping Jason Tatum up. He's a great player. Obviously, 5 points is not what he's going to usually put up. But it just shows Giannis is a stud. Chris Middleton's a stud defensively wise. It's hard to score against these guys. Giannis is so good. And no one's going to be able to stop him. That's why I think they're going to roll through the East. Maybe the Raptors give them, a little chance. But, especially without Eric Bledsoe, who's really a big part of that team, it shows that they could get it done. Their shooting, they have really great spacing, which is scary for other teams. Because like I said, the three-point shot is the most efficient shot in the game. And the fact that they are, all five of their players, even Giannis a little bit, could shoot that three is scary. Especially off their bench. George Hill, Sterling Brown, Ersan, Kyle Korver, Robin Lopez, all those guys could shoot. Literally the whole team could shoot the three. And that's why the Bucks are so, so good. And also, if you want to get down low, the Bucks are right there with Lopez and Giannis. That's why they're so good. And the Celtics, I don't think they had a terrible game. I think Jason Tatum really hurt them. Foul trouble. His shot wasn't falling. And I think it would have been a much different game if Tatum was on. But guess what? If he gets locked down like that, it's what happens. Yeah, those were my takeaways from the game. I think everyone else pretty had a good game, what they were supposed to do. I just think Tatum had a terrible game. Giannis is so good, and what I've learned is that the Bucks shooting is going to really help them in these playoffs, and that's why they're so good. And the last game that I watched, maybe I'll talk about the Lakers Raptors game because I did watch most of that game. Um, is the Mavericks and Rockets. So this was a pretty crazy game. The one thing I learned is that the Mavericks choke a lot. They really can't hang on to a lead, and that's not good for their team. Um, we also have to remember that Trey Burke, and who I love because he was in the Knicks and he played great for them, is not going to shoot 8 for 9 from 3 every game and score 31 points. Porzingis had an amazing, amazing game. It hurts to say it as a Knicks fan, and Luka is obviously Luka. But like I said, especially because the Mavericks don't have the best depth in the world, they need their other guys to step up. Hardaway had a great game. Burke had a great game. But Seth Curry was cold. Maxi Kleber was cold. Dorian Finney-Smith was cold. DeLon Wright was cold. Every player besides Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway, the role players play terrible. And you can't have that. Especially with a high-scoring team against the Rockets. If you aren't going to score, 149 is a great number, obviously, in an NBA game, even in overtime, even after an overtime. But, you know, if you're not going to stop the Rockets defensively, you got to put those same numbers up. And Seth Curry is going to be a big X factor for the Mavericks. And if he doesn't do well, if his shot's not hitting, they're not going to win games. On the Rockets side of the ball, I mean, it's kind of unfair how they play. I'm going to be honest. They literally shoot so many threes. But what they do, which is so smart, is that their guards, Giannis, Russell, and Harden, could get to the rim so easily, it's hard to play defense against them. Russell is an animal and he could drive whatever time. And James knows offensively, since he's so skilled, how to get to the basket. So what I see from these, by the way, they put up 80 together, which is insane. Russell and Westbrook. Wow. Harden and Westbrook. But because their team, just like the Bucks, they could all shoot. So they're so hard to guard, which is why they're putting up 153 points in a game. You have Westbrook driving and Harden driving, kick it out, and then move the ball. They're so good at moving the ball and finding the open man that they'll always find an open three to get. So the Rockets, which I love the Rockets so much, I think they're going to be so hard to guard, and they're going to be, a really dark horse championship team. If these guys hit their shots, and if James Harden and Russell Westbrook don't usually choke like they normally do, this team can beat any team in the West, and I'm saying that right now. I know that could be a hot take, but these guys could probably beat any team in the West if they just continue with this game plan. Obviously, the size is going to hurt them. And honestly, I'd probably play Tyson Chandler 10, 15 minutes just for, rebounding purposes. I know that hurts, how they play their offense, and, they won the game. That's all that matters. 153, 149. It doesn't matter how much they let up. They won the game. And I know that if you put Tyson Chandler in, he's not going to hit a three. And I know it's going to hurt their offense, but their rebounding really needs help, because what happens is the Mavericks shoot and they miss it. You have a 7-3 Kristaps getting another ball. So if you think even about it mathematically, if you have two chances at getting points, it's a lot better than the Rockets who took up one. And that could hurt the Rockets, deep in the postseason with Anthony Davis, JaVale, and Dwight. So if you give the Lakers two shots every offensive possession and you give only yourself one, it's not going to, percentage-wise, make sense for you to win the game, and it's not going to look like you're going to win the game. So I think the Rockets have to try to figure that little tweak out with the rebounding and how to get a good rebounder who could shoot. I know Roko's fine at rebounding, same with Westbrook, as we know, but when it comes to size, and especially down low, so defensively down low, that's a problem, and offensively defensively also trying to get that rebound, those are two issues they have to figure out before the playoffs start. And the last game I want to talk about that I really watched, the other games I didn't really watch from yesterday's, obviously this is day 4 now, is the Lakers and Raptors. So of course I thought the Lakers were going to win. I thought they were going to win, pretty handedly. And of course the Raptors, like they always do, shock everyone. The Lakers, LeBron and Anthony Davis, I mean, they pretty much choked. The Lakers, I wouldn't even say they choked because, LeBron and they kind of turned it on, but Anthony Davis did not play well. And the Lakers just didn't look like they were in the game at all. The whole time, even when there was a tie game in the third, it just felt like the Raptors were winning the game by 50. Kyle Kuzma, again, great game. Dion Waiters, solid game. Caruso played great. But the centers aren't playing great right now, and they're not getting the minutes to kind of show them. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Danny Green played absolutely terrible. But yeah, I mean, for the Lakers' point of view, you got to have your two stars play well every single game. I know that's, it doesn't really make sense, but it does make sense at the same time. How could someone play so well every game? But for the Lakers, if they're depending on these two guys, especially since they traded, so much for Anthony Davis, you need Anthony Davis to make up, the amount of players they traded away. And, the Raptors side, I think it just shows how deep and how, connected the Raptors are. The Raptors play like a team. It always seems like, there's always a guy on the floor and they're helping each other up. There's always, the passes, and there's always a wide open guy since, they play like a team on offense. They always find someone in the corner. They always do a nice assist for, a nice post fadeaway. Whatever it is, these Raptors always seem like they are connected and know what they're doing. Pascal didn't have a great game, but Kyle Lowry is just showing why he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. OG Anunoby is going to be a huge X factor for that team, and he played amazing last night. I mean, the Lakers defensively was pretty terrible. I remember when OG was in the same place twice when he shot a three. The first time he made it, whatever, you make a three. The next possession, he was wide open in the same spot, and he'll hit that. OG's a great three-point shooter. The Raptors as a team offensively didn't play great when it comes to their whole team. Norman Powell, Ibaka, Terrence Davis, they were kind of off. But, Lowry was really great. Lowry's amazing. 33, 14, and 6 is great stats. OG was really the huge X factor for them. Fred VanVleet also played amazing. I also just noticed Kyle Lowry's 14 is in rebounds. That's pretty impressive. So, yeah, what I took away from this game is that the Lakers just didn't even seem to try. I know they have the first seed locked up, so it doesn't really matter, especially after being the Clippers. But, you want to have momentum coming into the playoffs. Lakers, obviously, even if they had the first seed locked up, I don't think they should be taking this very carefully. This year is so important for them to win the chip. LeBron, especially for LeBron. And they have the momentum, they have the media, they have everyone on their side to win this chip. So I don't think they should mess around. I don't think they are going to mess around. I'm not saying that they are, but they played really sloppy last night, and we don't want to see that as NBA fans. We want to see them, playing well as a team because they are a great team when they all are playing well. The Raptors, all I got to say to wrap it up is that they're going to be dark horse contenders in the East. I guess they're not really dark horse, but I would say dark horse contenders to make the championship, as everyone thinks the Bucks are going to easily make it, or maybe the Celtics also. These guys could definitely make the championship and put up a fight. So do not doubt the Raptors. Their bench is so deep. Boucher, as you guys know, locked up Giannis this year, wasn't even playing. Matt Thomas, who's a great three-point shooter, didn't play. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, great backup big, didn't even play. So this team has so much depth. It seems like they're so connected. They literally brought pretty much everyone back besides Kawhi and Danny Green. This team looks like they have the chemistry to win a lot of games in the postseason and do a lot of damage. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for my analysis. Looking at today's games, the Bucks Rockets game is going to be a great one. I'm actually really excited for that one. That should be a great game. Definitely going to watch that game. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. We have so much basketball to watch until the playoffs, so that's really great to see. I love watching all these games, and I hope you guys too. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. It was a pretty long video, but we talked about all the games. Hopefully you guys watched the games. If you didn't, now you know what was going on in those games. And yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment any of your thoughts from these previous games. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, whether that's a quiz, a talk show, or something else. Bye, guys.